Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Collards
and Curry
podcast. I'm your co-host, Pierre Quinn.
And I'm your co-host, Coleen Alexander.
Are you going to default to the co-host?
We're co-hosting together.
No, this cup says co-host. Your cup says real host.
Okay. I'm your real host, Coleen Alexander.
And here on the Collards and Curry podcast, we talk all things fun, focus, and faith. So this is really a continuation of
our last episode.
Where we were talking about our journey as a pastoral family.
And just a little bit about it.
Yeah, a snippet.
Yeah.
Is snippet even a word?
I think it's snippet.
Oh, okay. Well, a snippet of our journey. And on the last episode, we talked about fun. We got into focus, which is our conversation on mental health. Mm-hmm. And we did not have time for the faith section. So
we'll try to get to that today.
Yeah. In this episode of the podcast, we're going to talk about another element of focus or mental health as it relates to being a pastoral family, and then talk about the faith element. And just want to thank everybody who rocks with us, who listens to the podcast on Buzzsprout or Apple Podcasts or wherever.
YouTube.
Who subscribed on YouTube. If you're not subscribed on YouTube, feel free to do that. Hang out with us. Hit that notification bell. All that stuff that, you're supposed to say.
I know. I could never keep up. Yeah. So I always let you do that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So, yeah, if you want more of the backstory, you have to listen to the previous episode. So if this is your first time listening to us, thanks for hanging out with us. And it's going to be a great journey. And you really want to listen to the previous episode, Your Potluck is Trash.
Oh, Lord.
You want to listen to that one. That one sets the stage for the conversation that we're having today. Now, typically we don't talk a lot about in our 5 or 6 episodes what it meant to be a pastoral family, but this is part of what we're talking about on this episode. So
now I have to say, I didn't know you were going to put that as the title last time.
Yeah,
Your potluck is trash.
Yeah, see, you don't really know what I'm going to title the episode.
No, I don't.
I kind of listen for the thing that is the thing that makes sense to talk about the thing. So, Your Potluck is Trash. You got to admit, though, it was like the perfect title.
Yeah. I know we had some comments.
We had a couple of comments.
Yeah.
So, if you were offended by that podcast episode, get your cooking game up. Yep.
All right.
So let's continue in our conversation from the previous episode and our snippet into our journey as a pastoral family, or the time that we served as a pastoral family. And let's go back into the focus piece, the mental health. And I want to ask you about the weight of being a pastor's wife.
It's challenging, I would say. Yeah, I kind of wrote a few things down because I didn't want to forget some of the things I wanted to talk about.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So one of the things I said was many times the unrealistic expectations that are placed on pastoral spouses or wives. That I made my list. You gotta look a certain way, dress a certain way. Most times people want you to be quiet. Just look pretty if you're a wife. Look pretty, play the part. Don't really give your input. And we really just want you here to look good next to your husband. At least, yeah.
So go back to your experience growing up in church. Was that what you just gave? Was that framework something you've always seen, even growing up in Trinidad and then life in New York? Have you always seen, or have the churches that you've been a part of always framed the pastor's wife that way?
Yeah, at least from the outside looking into pastoral families, I would say there was always so much pressure placed on the family, and specifically the wife, to be this type of person, to play the role of the wife. And for me, when I became a pastor's wife, I immediately recognized that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So kind of in my journey in school, I kind of made that my topic, my potential topic that I want to research for my thesis, to look into that and, kind of explore that more and see how pastors' wives deal with it.
Okay, so speaking of dealing with it, just from observation, I know you're not in the research phase of your thesis yet, but just observation, when you look at some of the unrealistic expectations that you've talked about, and you observed in a more contemporary context other pastors' wives that how have you seen them handling the pressure of it all?
I would say many times you don't have, at least within the church that you attend, you don't have a safe circle. And we kind of talked about this on the last episode, that you don't really have a safe space where you could kind of go and talk about some of the things that you do encounter. So you do feel invisible at times and isolated, alone. And kind of like, okay, we just really want your husband, but you're here. You kind of tag along. So for the friends I've talked to, many of them, I would say they feel invisible many times within the church they attend.
So what do you mean by invisible?
Like you're there, but people don't really see you and really, I'm looking for a word. It's like you're not taken seriously. Yeah. The gifts you might have, it's like you're not considered. I know for me personally, I've felt like I wasn't a real member of the church, whichever church we've attended.
Yeah.
So it's a struggle, I would say.
Would you say there were times where you felt like you were, or made to feel like you were in the way?
Especially those moments, say if there's board meeting going on, which is, if you want to explain what board meeting is for some people. I
think a lot of people know, no matter what your denominational context, you understand board meeting.
Yeah.
All right. Well, all the church leaders get together and go to war.
Yeah. Well, business meeting. I remember one time we were having a business meeting at a particular church.
Yeah.
And I think I stepped out to use the restroom, and a member actually came up to me and was asking me, Sister Quinn, you're still here? Why would you want to be here? And I'm in my head, I'm like, am I not a member? Shouldn't I at least hear, what's... For me, I'm that type of person. I'm not the sit back and just let everything happen. Yeah. I want to be actively involved in church, even if it's a church that my husband was pastoring. So, yeah, that I kind of see that clash, even with if potentially you have a leadership role. I know for our organization, it's always a suggestion that you're not in board meeting with your husband. I never liked that. I would always be like, okay, do you think I'm not capable of handling scene? I think the suggestion was that it would cause some confusion and chaos in the marriage later on if something were to break out in the meeting.
I remember being in seminary, taking a church leadership course, and the professor was talking about how he was serving as a senior pastor of a church, and his wife was on the church board. And in the church board meeting, a member said something disrespectful to him, and his wife defended him in the meeting, and he said he called his wife as being out of order.
Okay.
In the meeting, and she said, "I'm never coming to another meeting again."
But my thing is, these are things that human beings have to deal with, right? I mean, these are emotions. So why say to a person, to me, that's what's being said to me. If you're not capable of being in a meeting with your husband, like you guys can't handle conflict. I mean, we do all the time in marriages.
Yeah.
So for me, I've always felt that was kind of wrong.
I don't know if it's the context, from the pastoral lens, right? If people are really concerned about this causing a rift in the marriage, more so we're trying to,
or more so that you have someone perhaps that might they're afraid that your wife might be supportive of you within the meeting. Yeah. I don't think it's the conflict more so.
Listen, people just don't. I don't know. People maybe don't want to go to war like that, and I think it plays into what you were saying before, like the invisibility thing.
Yeah,
where let's kind of keep this role kind of sort of fixed.
Yeah.
Almost like not a figurehead, but like, you know, you don't really do anything. You're just here.
Yeah, I never liked that. Yeah. So for me, I was always uncomfortable. Like, I want to do something. And I know for sometime we had discussions like, what role would you like to play? And we had to deal with that within our marriage. So, yeah.
I don't. I mean, it's sticky. It's sticky, and we've talked about this a lot. Where, you know, the viewpoint for the pastor, this is his job or her job, and their spouse is coming to work with them.
Yeah,
like it's always it's awkward, not awkward in the sense of you're trying to do your job and worry about what's going on. And you're thinking, okay, my family, time, all those things.
But you see, then again, within our culture, right?
Yeah.
Many people don't think of pastoral ministry as a job, but it's like this divine, anointed thing that, you know, it's this thing. I don't know how to fully explain it.
You know how I feel about that.
Yeah, it's not. So that's why I think it's hard to get that separation. So many, and I'm not saying that's how it is for everyone, but there are some couples who believe it's our entire family. We're doing ministry, and we all have to be involved. And
listen, I want all the smoke on this. I want everybody. You got something to say about this? I want all the smoke.
It's tough though, because you have so much things coming at you: culture, family. Because we've dealt with things too within family.
Yeah.
I've had things said, you can't do that because you're married to a pastor. So
what does that mean though?
You deal with different things. Yeah.
Like, what does that mean?
I don't know, maybe potentially, supposedly, since you're married to a pastor, you can't do things. Notwithstanding that you're adult and you could make decisions for yourself. But again, I think it's culture that comes into play a lot of times that put these things on us, and we just grab hold of them.
So how did you feel navigating the intensity of this perspective that, as the pastor of the church, your husband is supposed to figure out everything for everybody?
That was tough too, because I guess especially when the kids were much younger, it was tough because at times you would feel somewhat like a single parent, because your husband at church, that's his job. He's doing all the things expected of him, and you're at church where typically you want as a family to be able to interact and participate as a family, but you're there with the kids alone. So, it was tough. Yeah, at times. You're looking at me like...
You got anything else you want to say about that? I'm just going to take a little...
There were encounters where, as a wife, you saw specifically people wanting things from your husband where it shouldn't have been that way. It's like... Okay.
Frame that out. I don't want people thinking the wrong thing. Not on Collards and Curry.
It's like, because people have this... I guess I should specify what I mean by people. Church members tend to think that the pastor has all the answers. He's going to be able to solve all my problems. I just need the pastor to pray over me and all will be well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as the family, you kind of have to, especially as a wife, you have to hold the family together while he's trying to help church members.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a struggle at times to be able to do that.
And then like hope and pray that there's something left over.
Yeah, because we dealt with that. You're exhausted helping all the emotions going out to help people with different issues. I mean, you're tired at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. So we dealt with that. Oh, at the end of the day, it's a drag. We got to find something to eat, get the kids home. They're cranky and yeah.
Can you imagine that on top of a bad potluck?
Oh,
like man. A trash potluck?
That's a good way to connect it back. Yeah. So I think many times people look at pastoral families
mm-hmm.
and they think they're just supposed to be able to get it all right.
Yeah.
Like do it well and look good doing it and play the piano, Sister Quinn, and sing and be nice to everyone. Put on that smile and say happy Sabbath. And there are days I don't want to talk to anyone.
You know why we want pastors' wives to play the piano, right?
Why?
So we don't have to pay a musician.
Oh, yeah. We've encountered that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. The things that pastoral families go through, mm-hmm. I've always said we need, especially in our organization, we need some type of, what I told you, advocacy.
Advocacy, yeah.
Yes. Especially with the moving, often having to move, the kids being in school. It takes a lot out of the family.
Don't get started on the school piece. We don't have time in this podcast to talk about the school situationship.
Yeah.
My. But it is a lot.
Something else.
We'll have to do that in 2022.
Another episode, yeah.
So, let's talk about, in terms of faith, what it's like to frame out or try or work through your own relationship with God, your own faith journey,
mm-hmm.
independent of, or even connected to what's happening in the church space.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know how it was for me. How was it for you?
I mean, it was rough because the expectation is, oh, you're a pastoral family. You have like the bomb spiritual life. You wake up every day and you read your Bible. And I mean, we're like every other family. We struggle to mm-hmm. wake up. We struggle to have personal devotion. So, yeah, it was a struggle for me.
Yeah. Honestly, with pastors, a lot of times there are sections of life, and I know some people have developed strong spiritual disciplines and a pattern and routine, but many pastors will tell you during certain sections of their pastoral leadership, the only praying they did was when they went to church. The only Bible reading they did was in preparation for a sermon, because I think there is a tension associated with church things.
Mm-hmm.
That you try to get away from it whenever you're not there, and sometimes the pattern or the practice
mm-hmm.
can put you in a tough place. I always believe in the psychology of buildings,
mm-hmm.
where, and y'all know, you come to church and you suddenly become a different person. If I saw you at the gas station or a restaurant, we could talk and have a great conversation.
Yeah.
But when I see you in the building,
the script goes on.
There's a thing, an air that you put on.
Mm-hmm.
And I know sometimes for pastors, it's like, I'm just trying to decompress. And that bleeds into, really taking away from your personal reflection and devotional time.
How was it, say, after you preached a sermon,
mm-hmm.
like within your head, how was that for you? Were you tired? Like, just
depends.
Leave me alone?
Was the sermon trash? Or was it decent? Now, I'll tell you what happened when it was trash. Yeah, the way we set things up, right?
Mm-hmm.
From a psychological standpoint, where let's take sports, right?
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever watched? I know you have. Have you ever watched a professional athlete
Mm-hmm.
right after the game, and the reporter was like, "So, what do you think? How'd you feel? How'd it go?"
They're like super annoyed, like in answering the question many times.
That is the receiving line at the end of church.
Mm-hmm.
You have 20, 30, 40 minutes, an hour, however long you've been up there, sharing, and if it was decent. Just the amount of energy that's come out, and that doesn't mean, rah energy, just the amount of emotional energy that you spent, and you need some time to decompress.
Yeah.
That's why reporters have to wait until athletes take a shower, come out for the interview, versus like the sideline reporter who's trying to get the microphone in the face of the star real quick before they run into the shower.
Yeah.
And you're like the person they're breathing hard, they're tired, they're annoyed, they can't think straight, they need something to eat, they need something. That's what it's like. All of that comes crashing in at the same time, and processing the words that you said yourself. And sometimes you're like, Lord, I don't want to be standing right here because I need a time, me and you, to reflect.
Yeah. For me, looking at you sometimes, or other pastors, and the church members, it often look like how I pictured, within the crowd, people trying to get to Jesus. And let me just touch them. Let me just say hello. And maybe my new week will be better for me. Did you feel like that in any way? Like people were just wanting to get close to you as a way to feel some reassurance that things would be better?
Yeah, and I think what's happening there is people resonated with the moment that just happened. And the truth is, it's a co-created moment. It's preacher and congregation together having this shared experience. And if you take one of the elements away, if it's just the preacher by themselves, it's not. If it's just the congregation, we've created this moment together. And the feeling sometimes is, the pastor, through the power of the Holy Spirit, made this moment.
Yeah.
No, it's a shared moment. And that's why, because it's a shared moment, I feel we really shouldn't do receiving lines at church. I think that should be a time to point people intentionally back to community, pre-COVID, of course.
Yeah.
Conversations with each other. Like we just had a shared moment. Let's
introspection.
But no, it's like old school industrial revolution model. Let's single file. Let's line up and shake hands.
Yeah.
So, and then it's almost like because how the exit strategy of a church is, you force people to interact with the speaker that didn't want to.
Yeah. Or they look for ways to get out of it.
Listen, don't get it twisted. I don't want to shake your hand either. It's not obligatory. There's no magic sauce that's about to come. But and that think about a person with anxiety, right? And they're like, man, the usher is only letting me get out through the middle. In the middle, I have to go through the receiving line. So you see people literally cluster behind somebody else so they can get around.
Because you're thinking, I'm trying to be a church member. What am I going to say to him?
Yeah.
Thank you, Pastor, for the sermon today.
Good sermon or whatever.
Yeah.
What if I thought it was a trash sermon? What am I supposed to say?
Yeah. I guess lie about it. I don't know.
No,
Many times we lie.
Let me teach y'all, all right? You ain't got to lie, all right? Just say...
You appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate you.
Yeah.
That's a great one. I appreciate you. Yeah.
We've used that
good seeing you today. That you don't have to lie. If it was trash, don't just say, or I'm praying for you. Those are things you can share. And for me, there are moments when I'm just there and I'm just like, man, I'm praying. Like I'm having a post-game conversation with God. Like, do we have to do this?
I could just imagine, because I've had moments, I haven't preached, but like given presentations in class.
Yeah.
And it's like, right after, it's like, I'm hot. I'm like, the adrenaline is coming down, and it's like, you just want to chill for a little bit. So I could only imagine how you were feeling.
And that's one of the reasons why pastors before worship programs don't like to be talked to. Because for them, their moment, it's weird, their moment of reflection has to happen in the beginning because they know they won't get it in the end. So I'm pre-decompressing.
Yeah.
This is my time to talk with God, just me and him. Nobody else is around to prepare for this moment. I have to do it on the front end because if not, I'm not going to get this moment until I get home.
So do you think church should be set up in a way where we're better able to interact and that pressure isn't felt as much? Or do you think it's going to be then?
If we interacted well with each other, and don't get me started on Bible school, Sunday school, Sabbath school, help me. If we set it up where we actually interacted with each other more, it would be less
it's
of
like
a demand.
demanding. Yeah.
Because people feel like, well, I don't get to talk to anybody.
This is my time.
You rushing me out of church real quick.
I think people want to linger and interact, but because of tradition, you just gotta leave.
You gotta shake the pastor's hand and get out the space. Where especially depending on what was said in that moment,
you need the time.
You need especially if it was like weighty, right? You are touching things. First of all, the relationship between spirituality and mental health, that entanglement, right?
Yep. People
need time to just kind of sometimes even just sit in it or talk to somebody else. And if 300, 400 people in a room need that, how much more then would the pastor need it? How much more would his family need it? I've been, we've driven home sometimes, and sometimes you think your kids aren't listening. They are. And they ask you things about the message. And you're like, man, they need time in their small young minds to sit in it and process it as well. And it's tough because you just want to just have some time just to kind of reflect. And it's not always afforded to you. And that just adds to the stress of the family. I'm going to be here from 10 o'clock in the morning till the sun goes down. And I'm going to barely have to drag myself home.
We pack so much into the weekend. That's a big thing, too. We pack a lot. So you're exhausted by the end of the day. Yeah.
And then you have a couple of days to decompress before you have to get up and do it all over again. For me, my anxiety would start to set in about Wednesday.
The thought of going to the building.
Tuesday night. I would be good from the time we got home till about Tuesday night. Then Wednesday, you're back, back in the building, back in the stuff and all of the things. And you see why some people have breakdowns or lead a totally different life when they're not.
Yeah.
Sometimes a really nefarious life.
So what do you say to a person listening and hearing a pastor say, I had anxiety thinking about coming to a church building? I mean, the reality of it.
I would say respect the other person's humanity. The same way you get anxiety when you go to different places, when you go to the doctor's office, when you have to go do your taxes around tax time, when you have to have an uncomfortable conversation. Respect the humanity. Like, people are humans. No magic here.
Yeah.
We're humans doing the best we can by faith. And as we learn to embrace each other, we'll be better for it.
Yep. I think that's a good way to end.
That's a good way to end. So we'll catch y'all next time.
Yes, guys. Thanks for the support.
And I'm the host.
Okay, babe. Bye, guys.